Subscribe or they will haunt you.
What was something that happened to you as a child that you didn't realize was scary, creepy, dangerous until you got older? This might be a little long. When I was still a toddler, around 3 or so, my mom and dad took my sister 10 years old and I on a trip to Toronto. We were towing a small trailer and I guess it got a flat. For some reason my parents unhooked the trailer, spread a blanket and left my sister and I to watch it while they drove to a repair shop. Note: we were on the 401 highway, which is a divided 70 mph at the time speed limit 4-lane freeway. There couldn't have been a repair shop for 60 or more miles. They took off for what seemed like hours. Could have been. I was 3. So we are sitting there and a station wagon pulls to the shoulder and comes to a stop. By the time I noticed, a middle-aged man had scooted to the passenger side of his car, opened the door and was whacking it for all it's worth. I just stared at him because I was curious and my sister said, "Don't look and he'll go away." I thought she said, "Don't look or he'll go away." So I pretended to cover my eyes and stared through my fingers because I thought she wanted him to stay. In any case, he finally finished up and left but came back after a fair while. He must have taken the next off-ramp and doubled back because he showed back up again doing the same thing. By then, I had figured out my sister was afraid, so I tried not to look as much. Edit: I should have mentioned that I am female. He must have left. And after a long time my parents came back for us. That part is all hazy. I just remembered the word man. At no point was I frightened because of my trust in my sister. When we got home and we went out to play, I told all her friends that I saw a man stretching his dick, which they found hilarious. I only realized many years later how much danger we were in and how irresponsible my parents were. All I can think now is my poor sister. The first time I read whacking it for all it's worth, I thought you meant the guy was hitting his car door for some reason. Made the unintentional surprise twist at the end all the more sickening. I recently replied to a post on AskReddit about scariest experiences, and after reading what I had to say, a couple of people suggested I post about it here. So here I am. A week or so before my 10th birthday, I walked to the corner store with a $5 bill and picked up a jar of ragu for my mom. On my way home, a man I'd never seen before fell in step with me and began talking. "Hi," he said cheerfully. "My name is Dr. Ramsey. I'm a pediatrician. Do you know what a pediatrician is?" I walked along silently, not replying and fervently hoping he would take that as a sign he should leave me alone. Subtleties were not his strong suit, though, because he kept right on chattering. "Are your parents looking for a pediatrician for you?" "Of course. You're almost a big girl now. You'll be needing another kind of doctor soon, won't you?" "That's okay though. They can still bring you to me until then." "What's your name?" "You have beautiful hair." I was just on my way to get some suckers for the candy jar in my office. "Do you like suckers?" Thankfully, we were nearing my house, so I ran forward, up the back steps and through the kitchen door. I didn't know it then, but that was the beginning of a very long, very scary ordeal. It didn't take long after that for Dr. Ramsey to begin showing up. At first, it seemed benign enough, at least to a kid. He would drive by nearly every day, smiling and waving. I told my mom, who said maybe it was on his way home from work. But then, the phone calls began. My dad called me into the living room and sat me down. He asked about the day Dr. Ramsey followed me home and if I talked to him. He said I wasn't in trouble, but that I needed to tell him the truth. I told him no, and he asked if I was sure. Could I be forgetting something? I told him no again, and he frowned, then asked, "Then how does he know your name?" I didn't know. It turns out, that was not all he knew. He knew my sister's name as well. Pretty soon, neither my sister or I were allowed to answer the phone. He called several times a day. At first, Neither of us knew what he was saying. Then, one night, one of my brothers told us that he was telling my parents that he was going to hurt me and later, my sister. Things got complicated after that. My dad had called the police, but as this was before there were any stalking laws, there was not a lot they could do. They told my parents to call back if he tried anything. My dad then called a friend of his from back in the day, who happened to be a cop. For the next month, my dad's friend escorted me to and from school. Suddenly, life as I knew it came screeching to a halt. I couldn't walk to school alone, I couldn't play outside. I couldn't walk to Super America, sort of like a 7-11 for those who don't know. When access to me was completely denied, things escalated. It was around this time he began threatening my sister as well. Then one afternoon my sister, two of my brothers, my mom and I were in the kitchen. One of my brothers saw a glimpse of someone in the garage. They'd seen him too. Dr. Ramsey came bolting out of the garage, my brothers chasing after him. They ran all the way to Cherokee Park, where we lost them in the trees. My parents called the police again, but nothing came of it. The only information they had was a description and a name that was almost certainly fake. A couple weeks later, we woke to find our dog hanging from the side porch. She was a gorgeous saddleback German Shepherd, born the same day I was. We were all devastated. The cops said there was no evidence it was him, and ruled it accidental. But none of us believed that. His phone calls became more informative. In the meantime, he would talk about who was home and who wasn't. If my brother would say my dad was home, he would tell him who was really in the house. He also would talk about the house itself, about the window in the kitchen he could easily open with a knife from the outside even when it was locked, and about the French doors that connected the living room to the side porch, and how the lock could be finagled from the outside if you jiggled it just right. That night, my dad put on some carpenter nails at the bottom of the French doors until he could get a new lock ordered. My parents had to go to a company event for my dad's work. My older brothers were at Saints West roller skating rink. My sister was on the phone with her best friend. My little brother was on the floor asleep. I was watching Dave on the midnight special with Wolfman Jack. It was late. Suddenly, the top of the French door swung inward, and in the few milliseconds before the nails in the bottom caused them to snap back, I could see his silhouette. My sister whipped the phone at the television, and we ran up the stairs. About halfway up, we realized our little brother was still asleep on the living room floor. As quietly as we could, we slipped back down the stairs to get him. We all went into our bedroom and didn't turn on the light. This way we could see outside. We watched out the window for a while, and when we didn't find him, we crept down the hall to our brother's room to look. We looked down and could see someone standing at the back door. He knocked loudly. "What do you want?" my sister asked out the window. He stepped back and said, "Is this the Mercy residence? I have a pizza for delivery. Can you come to the door?" She scoffed at him, declaring she was not stupid. She could see he didn't have a pizza, and she was calling the cops. He left. A short while later, my brothers returned home. We told them what happened and they walked around the yard, watching for him. They came back in, and things settled down. By now we'd pretty much given up calling the cops because it never helped. So we just went back in, each of us, except my youngest brother, still asleep, carrying a knife from the kitchen just in case. Eventually, one of my brothers went into the kitchen to get a bowl of cereal as a snack. You know that sensation you get when you can just feel someone watching you? Yeah, he had that in spades. He kept looking around the kitchen, through the doorway into the dining room, at the windows. He didn't see anything, but he could still feel eyes on him. So he went closer to the door to try to see better. The kitchen lights were reflecting on the windows of the door. It had 3 rows of 3 windows. Oh, he still couldn't see. He stepped closer, then closer again, until he was right up to the door, then cupped his hands on either side of his head so he could see. There on the other side of the window pane was Dr. Ramsey, smiling back at him. He turned to yell for my older brothers, and when he looked back again, he was gone. They went out again to look for him, but didn't see him. The next night we were at the table playing Crazy Eights and my brother was restless. My sister asked him what's wrong, and he said he always felt like any minute now there would be a boom 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 on a door or window. Almost immediately after he finished his sentence, boom 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 on the window right behind him. In the chaos, the two eldest ran out, but he was already gone. A couple of weeks later, I was at school and we were outside on the playground during recess. I was swinging upside down when I saw that now familiar blue Ford Galaxy cruising by, moving slowly. There he was, smiling and waving. He called my name, and I ran to the teacher and told her. The school had been told all about him, and she took me inside right away and called my mom. That same day my mom had gotten a call from the school office asking her to verify that my dad was picking me up, as he'd called to say he was on his way. He wasn't. Not long after that, I woke up one night, thirsty. I went down to the kitchen for a drink and there, sitting alone in the dark, was my dad. On the table, a gun. He was tired of the police waiting until Dr. Ramsey tried something. He was tired of his children being terrorized. He was tired of being afraid every time he left for work that something would happen to us while he was gone. I sat with him for a time, watching, before he sent me back to bed. These events, and many more, took place over a period of around 18 months. Then, as suddenly as it began, it was over. He had vanished from our lives. The phone calls, the drive-by with the creepy waves, everything. For a long time, during and after the Dr. Ramsey days, I would have a recurring nightmare in which I would wake up to find him standing over me as I slept. It took a long time before I felt like a kid again. I found out years later that when he was calling, Dr. Ramsey would tell my parents that he was going to rape and kill me, and later my sister, and that there was nothing they could do about it. I don't know what happened to him when he disappeared. I don't know if he was in a car wreck, locked in prison, in a coma. But sometimes I wonder if the wait ended for my dad when he was sitting in the darkened kitchen. Oh, night. I don't know, and I'm not sure I want to. Goodness, where do I start? I've been approached 4 times to hop into cars. Didn't think anything of it and just said no. A lady once tried to coax us across the road with some lollies. Lucky our friend's mom was there. I nearly drowned while trying to keep up with the adults in the ocean. I jumped off the roof of our house onto our trampoline. Definitely not a smart idea. My mom nearly killed us all when she drunkenly forgot to turn the gas stove off before passing out. I was in a taxi with my mom when a taxi almost took off with me inside when mom hopped out. My brother started a fire when he was 2 and I a newborn. I was in my cot and he snuck matches into my room, started a fire, then hid in the cupboard. I was in a serious head-on car incident and thought my dad was doing donuts. We had someone break into our house that we just moved into. They had bats, etc. My brother hid me in a cupboard while my parents kicked ass. Never mess with a feisty Asian lady and naked fat man. What else? Oh, the first time swimming in a beach in Australia. I swam with a swarm of blue bottles. I had stings everywhere, including inside my throat. I'm sure there are plenty more. My stepfather is a pedophile. I realized it until I found child pornography on his phone. Even this, I was a bit doubtful. I look back now at all the things we had done, the situations we were in, the dirty positions we accidentally found ourselves in, and it makes me want to vomit and die. I couldn't believe I didn't find something fishy when the cops got called on us at Pizza Hut because a family thought he was acting too inappropriate with me. He continued to get crazier and creepier, and even gradually attempted to kill my mom, so I assume he could have me alone. Edit. I told you all my childhood horrors and I'm a bit disappointed to be accused of lying. Although I should have expected it. My story is 100% real and I am still living in hell because of that man. I have night terrors. I have several mental illnesses. I am incredibly depressed and often suicidal, and I am a victim, and trauma is real. You have the right to your opinions. You have the right to not believe my story, but please understand, this has ruined my life. Sorry, I slept a while. We moved away back in 2011 and life has gotten better since then. I'm 15 right now and have been in multiple psychiatric hospitals since then because of attempted suicides, self-harm, and a few psychotic episodes. I have nightmares to this day. Every day it seems like I can't get over what he did. He brainwashed us into believing the outside world was bad. He would deny my mother medical care. She's physically disabled and has chronic pain. Wouldn't take her to the dentist so all her teeth fell out. And she desperately needed a hysterectomy because she was constantly losing tons of blood on her period. He lives 250 miles away, but is still in our life because he and my mom are married. My mom can't afford to get a divorce and he refuses to pay for it because he wants to still be legally my stepfather even though I don't ever talk to him. In answer to a reply below, I also apologize for the new account. I have had multiple in the past but am constantly deleting and remaking them because the accounts never feel complete or never feel right. OCD is not something I enjoy having. Addict 2. I'm actually a bit frightened right now. I'm getting death threats over PM and people threatening to dox me along with sending me links to Facebook profiles attempting to find me. All I wanted to do was share my traumatic childhood stories. I'm deactivating my account before anyone else gets closer to my identity. My family's station wagon blew a flat in the middle of the night on I-95 as we exited the city of Miami. I was 5 years old and riding along with my mom, grandparent, sibling and dad, who was driving when the tire blew. It was the 80s. When the tire blew, everyone freaked out a bit. For some reason, my dad kept driving on the flat even though we were traveling at a high speed. Eventually the tire wore down or fell off and we were riding on the rim, sparking down the freeway in the middle of the night. I remember the energy in the car turned to fear, but something was off. I was told when I was older that my dad saw a man in the center median throw a strip of nails attached to something into the middle of the highway, which my dad could not avoid. Turns out, people were using this method to rob and carjack highway drivers in the middle of the night. My dad somehow was aware of what was happening and responded accordingly by not stopping to change the tire for several miles. Luckily we had a full-size spare. We changed the tire several miles down the road and made it home safely. My family was not carjacked and who knows what else because my dad rolled with the punches, rolled with the punctures.